So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us. This is Sean Williams coming to you live from Colorado Springs, the downtown campus of the University of Colorado Springs. It's my pleasure today to welcome Carlisle Sargent, a friend, senior UX designer from Lucid Technologies, and we're going to talk for about an hour about user experience design, about Carlisle's experiences. We're going to have some questions. I'm going to ask Carlisle some questions that have come in from our field of viewers and listeners out there in the world. I also want to give a special shout out before we begin to Stephanie Adams for helping us as we set this up. Also Margie Oldham for helping us arrange this. We have our video crew, and also Lonnie McMichael, who's over in the wings, who is going to be shooting us questions as they appear. All right. So Carlisle Sargent, thank you very, very, very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you work, where you are in the world.
Yes, I will. I will give the quickest autobiography as possible. So just want to say hello to everybody out there in Zoom land and beyond. I'm super happy to be here. Sean is one of my favorite people, so this was an easy thing to agree to, and I'm stoked to talk about my favorite thing ever, which is UX. So I will give a little background on myself. I'll start with where I work now, and then Sean, we can jump around as appropriate. So like Sean mentioned, I work at a company called Lucid that is headquartered in New Orleans. So I am currently in New Orleans right now. Hello from Mardi Gras land to you all. And my company is an interesting tech company in the niche world of market research. And I work right now as the senior manager for our UX and design team. I started at Lucid about 3 years ago, and I was hired as our very first designer for a very complicated product that was in essence built by some very smart developers with a lot of functionality in mind, but not really a lot of UX or design in mind. So when I was hired, it was immediately way too big of a job for one person, and I was able to move into a leadership role and was able to hire out a team. So in 3 years, the UX and design department has gone from one person to now a team of 7, which I am very, very proud of and excited about at our company. Lucid has about, I think we're at like 400 or so people total globally. So not a huge company, but definitely we've got, a lot of people that work there. And to give just like a quick understanding of what it is that Lucid does is our main proprietary SaaS product, the product that I work on mostly, is called the Marketplace. And it's basically a place where people can buy or sell human research, which sounds weird, but is a huge industry. And it's how giant companies make a ton of their high-level decisions. So the best way that I can explain it is just an example. And I use this one often. Say you work at Coca-Cola and you want to figure out who in America is drinking what type of your soda. So you can come to our marketplace and you can log in and use our UI, and you can basically input, I want to send a survey to 5,000 cat-owning doctors in Wyoming. And we will also offer up that panel of people and connect you to that research. So we make money on both the buy side, where you're going to look for the research, and then also the supply side, because all of those panels and suppliers of the research come through us. And then I work on the product that connects everything. So it's very complex. It's super technically wild, but it's been really fun I've been at Lucid for almost 4 years now. So that's like the present day of where I am. I can keep going, but
Let's go backwards. And how did you get your foot in the door? How did you arrive to where you are now? What's a little bit of your pathway?
That's a great question, because you're going to get some shout outs in it. So very strategic of you, Sean. So I originally in high school, way back, was planning to go to college for art school. I am an artist and a maker and a writer by trade. never really focused in on any one of those things super deep, but I knew I wanted to make things for a living. And I originally thought in a kind of smaller worldview that, you know, studying art more formally was the way to do that. I ended up 2 days before starting at the art school I was supposed to go to, I made a switch and I ended up going to James Madison in Virginia, which is my home state. And I studied psychology and technical writing. And I would say that those two things started me on the path of kind of human-centered design, UX without knowing what UX was. And I had a really great mentor in undergrad. And he asked me one time, he said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I either want to study something that blends, you know, creativity and psychology, or I want to direct music videos." And I still want to do the second one one day, but I ended up applying to a couple of grad programs that kind of focus that other side of things, that blend of psychology and writing. And Clemson's program was one of them. Sean, you're gonna, what was the official? It was a Master of Arts in Professional Communication. Yes. So kind of like a strange little umbrella title that I think all of us were able to kind of self-define and dive into what we thought was most interesting. So when I was at Clemson studying for my master's, I took classes in like Aristotelian rhetoric and also web design principles and visual design. And it was this very strange mix of all of these things. And then I started working more specifically along the lines of user experience. I took what was it called? An individual study?
Independent study. Yeah.
Independent study with Sean, where we became very close, talking about entrepreneurship and user experience design, and a lot of discussions of Breaking Bad as Sean was watching it for the first time. So
I was 4 years late to that party.
You were so late to Breaking Bad. It's actually insane how late you were. But I ended up kind of diving into UX and really, really loving it. I loved it for a lot of reasons. It is still a field that's being kind of uncovered and defined. So you're able to self-define what you want to do the most. And I can talk more about that at another question. But I ended up taking a job after Clemson at a full-service digital design agency in Washington, D.C. And we did a lot of government and nonprofit web rebuilds. So like full-scale redesigns. I worked on some really cool stuff. Probably my favorite project was the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which I was on a team that led the website build for it, which is obviously something that was hugely important and overdue in our museum culture and life in Washington, D.C. So a lot of really cool work like that. And then I moved to this last job, which is much more technically driven, much more product oriented. I work on one or two giant things for a very long time versus a bunch of smaller projects. So that's the long story long way that I'm here now.
What do you think was one of the biggest challenges as you went from say graduate school to working in your first job in DC, working on that project with the African American History Museum, and then working at Lucid? What were some of the biggest challenges as you were developing along your way?
Yeah, biggest challenges, I would say there's a couple in the field still. I think on one hand, it being so big and open to exploration and what area you want to work, is that it can sometimes be very overwhelming to figure out like what type of UX you want to do and where you want to develop that specialty. I am very much a traditional information architecture. I want to overhaul your navigation. I want to rip up and show user flows. I want to study how people are moving through your product. That's like my happy place. But there are also UX professionals whose happy place is in more of the high fidelity graphic design. You have people who are really good at content design that are now moving into that UX writing field that's starting to develop. So I think with it being something still semi-new in the technical space, there's a lot of open ends on what you can do and how you want to specialize, and what people are looking for can be very specific. I would say the other challenge can be with companies that haven't always understood what UX is or what it does, is there is a lot of evangelization that comes with the job. I am a triple fire sign and a huge extrovert. So I like talking to people. I'm happy to stand up in front of my company, and I've had to do this, and say, hi, I'm a designer and this is what I do every day. And this is kind of where I focus my work. And this is why it's really important for you to invest in this. I have also had to stand in front of clients at my old job who have raised their hand and directly asked me, what are you doing and why are we paying you as a part of this build team? And that's the much more hostile and rare like confrontation that you'll get. But people that don't understand what UX design is, they're like, so are you designing the button? Are you developing the button? And I have to be like, no, I'm trying to help you figure out where the button should go so that the most people will click it. And that can be a little bit more of a nuanced understanding for people. But luckily, as the field has developed, hopefully that is happening a lot less than it was even like 5 to 10 years ago.
You know that information architecture is also dear to my heart. What do you think what is IA's role in your job in user experience design? Because the way I understand it is that UX is the big umbrella, IA is a part of it. How would you put those pieces together?
Yeah, I think UX, if you just think about the definition of the words itself, it's user experience. A part of that experience is how a digital product is built and how you move through it. So for instance, like a project that we're working on right now at my company is basically taking our big, heavy product that has a bunch of pathways to completing one job. You need to set up and launch a survey, let's say. And right now in our product, there's about 17 different ways that you can do that. And there's no order to it at all. So right now, a big project that my team and I are doing we're basically yanking the guts out of those myriad of ways that you can move through the product. And we're saying, here is the pathway, basic information, set up your targets, test out your survey, send it to your clients and launch your work. And that's the only way that you can do it. Now, a good information architect, even though I don't have anyone by that name or title on my team, they are going to be very comfortable with pissing people off. Because oftentimes, if you are yanking or moving around the navigation of an already known product, we as people are creatures of habit. I don't know if you guys ever experience like when your online bank like redesigns the online banking experience and you can't help it. You turn minimally curmudgeon and you're like, this is bull. I don't want to do this. Like, why did they change this? I was so used to it being the way it was. Now imagine that we're taking a product that you use to make millions of dollars with every year, and we're changing around the navigation to, yes, make it easier to use, but it's also brand new for you and you don't like it. So I think one piece and something I work with my team on, one thing I work really directly with my team on is developing that thick skin, being able to take feedback with a smile and a nod and say, yes, I totally understand how adding 20 seconds of learning to your day to learn a new navigation could be really stressful, but we're going to push this forward because it's the right decision for the majority of our users. So to kind of answer your question, it should be built into the skin, I think, of what you're doing. Information architecture is, I think, one of the cores of UX design is someone who can go in and say, hey, before you ask me to redesign a page, is this page even in the right order of this product? Is this person even getting to it at the right time? Asking those questions are the people that I want to work with. I see somebody wrote iPhone 8 to iPhone 10 that they took your button away, and I agree. Apple loves to piss off their consumer base and then know that we will go nowhere but stay with Apple. So they really won the game on that one.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't know how that magic. I don't know how Apple created that magic where they can completely undo what they've done, and yet people will wait in 4-hour lines to buy the newest iPhone.
Yep.
I'm not sure. That's magic.
That's like just cult behavior. We are all lightly Stockholm syndrome to the UIs that we're used to and love. Sean, I gotta be honest, I don't even like texting you on my phone because it's a green text, not a blue iMessage text, because you don't have an iPhone.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that I don't have an iPhone.
And I don't know why. It's stupid. Anyways, I could go on about Apple, so we won't.
Well, let me ask you this question, and this comes from one of the folks in one of our classes. And what weren't you prepared for? I mean, what weren't you prepared for?
I'll say at my current job, I wasn't prepared for how big the investment into user experience and design was going to be. I started as their first one, and I think just by kind of the magic of a personality fit, being comfortable advocating for how much more work that we needed to do and how many more people we needed to hire. Like the team of 7 that I have is also made up of 4 disciplines. Like I have like a baby organization now under me, which is so funny because I'm still trying to learn how to be a better designer every day. Like I'm still player coaching, I'm still in the weeds. So in some ways, like the best and biggest amounts of autonomy handed to me, they end up coming with a lot of pressure because all of a sudden people are saying, oh, we have to move all of our clients to software. Software is how we scale and get more money in the future, which means our UIs have to be beautiful and they need to work really well. And they need to make sure that they, keep our customers happy. And so it ends up, if you're good at your job, it ends up being like a pretty high pressure environment to be kind of just talking with a lot of leadership all the time, be making high level decisions about the future of these UIs and where they're going to spend a lot of tech dollars rebuilding. So I would say I wasn't I've become more prepared for that type of work. And that's kind of now my day to day. But in the beginning, when they started saying, I thought when they were going to invest in more design, they were going to hire me a boss. Like they were going to hire a head of design, and they were like, why don't you do it? It'll be fine. And I think that there was a little bit of like fear and a little bit of imposter syndrome, as we all have in the early days of like, what do I do? Who do I hire? How do I bring these people on and make sure they stay happy? So I would say just companies now being so invigorated by UX, it's like a snowball effect of, it's like a good job thing, but it also means you're going to be really busy.
Well, this comes to an interesting part of our conversation because I'm curious on a day-to-day basis. I mean, what does a day in the life of Carlisle Sargent look like?
Yes.
I mean, pre-COVID, post-COVID, now what does it look like for you?
Yeah, so I can definitely share some of that. So pre-COVID, I live about a mile from my headquarters. So I would bike to work, which was very delightful to do in New Orleans. Pretty great. And I actually was traveling once a month and living in New York City for part of the time because half of my team is in New York, or they were. Now people have moved and stuff. But so I was traveling a ton. I was really, really in person. And switching to a post-COVID world has definitely, I mean, you guys can see, I live in a shotgun in New Orleans, which means the rooms are just right in a row. So like my whole house is like right here. Like there's not many places to hide. So I've really had to kind of refocus on how do I keep my team invigorated? How do I stay interested myself when I'm not able to be in person with these people that I love to work with? I'm used to getting into basically a war room with devs and designers and product people and being able to whiteboard and talk and invoke that camaraderie and kind of get that buy-in to do the work that's really hard. And now we have to find a way, and I think a lot of tech companies need to find a way to do that remotely. And it's not always as easy. Like I'm happy that my team has been so high producing in this kind of switch to being full-time remote, but designers and developers as well, I think tech folks, like they can get into a habit of feeling very comfortable working at home and kind of being by yourself all day and just like going through your motions and doing the design work. But by nature, this job is a social job. This job is, you are made to be collaborating. You are meant to be learning from each other's mistakes, talking through design challenges and issues. And I would definitely say that a day in my life as a designer right now is trying to foster that collaboration organically and as organically as I can, whether that means, you know, bringing on tools for my team like Figma that allow asynchronous collaboration, where 5 people can be in a Figma file at once, like a Word, like a Google Doc, and you can be like editing it and designing together, which is a very cool way to whiteboard online. And then I would say as a manager, it's trying to invigorate my team to be collaborative, to be engaged, even in remote.
What are some of your daily objectives? Some, you know, like concrete things that you do in the course of a regular day?
My objectives daily change. And the one very great thing about the career of user experience is that no day is ever going to look the same for you, which is something that I find very attractive and I really like as my career kind of progresses. So I split my days, I try and split them into chunks. In the early morning, I'm often doing documentation of some kind. My job involves a ton of writing, a ton of documentation. If my team is starting a new project, I'm often helping them author like a proposal for what type of UX work we want to do. I'm helping them kind of make sure that requirements from our product team are clear. I'm writing up like mini Trello cards of what their work is and making sure that they're kind of managing through that. I will also be answering emails or Slacks. Our company is like powered by Slack. It's a little bit insane. So that's kind of my mornings. Late morning into early afternoon, I'm often in meetings, a lot of just like back-to-back context switching meetings. This is the crazy looking Trello board that I use to manage my team's work. But I share this just because it's kind of cool to see different work streams and to just see different like examples of projects that my team is working on. So to walk you guys through it, this is just like a board of cards. It's very simple. In the new brainstorm section, anyone can add ideas for work that have come up in conversation, things that people have mentioned to them, things that we might be interested in ourselves. So like, for example, this is me writing up something around, we want to add notifications to our product. So I'm tagging my people on it. I'm saying, what's the problem we're trying to solve? We don't have any notifications. That's kind of crappy. We should try and build some. What does it look like? When can we do that? But I then also break the work into actual subject areas. So I have one UX researcher, but she's cross-functional and works with other people. So she has a whole UX research list of work that is kind of building out throughout the quarter. My UX designers, they have work that they can come and pick up. I tag them in these. UI designers, so my folks that are more focused on that high fidelity visual design, they might be doing things that are much more visually focused. I have a UX writer. So she is working on, you know, writing support site articles for our help area and doing content audits and all of this very writing centric stuff. When someone is working on something, they have it in the in progress column. So that just signals to me that that's ongoing work. And then if I need to check off of something, it'll go into this column. So I actually have something I need to check on today. And then when we complete something, we move it into the completed column. And I keep this very, very organized because then at the end of every quarter or beyond, I can say to my leadership, okay, yes, we rolled some stuff into the UIs that you can actually see, but look at all the other work we have to do just to get to that point. Look at the research. I mean, you can see like I have crappy sketches of my own thrown in here just as a means of starting work and talking through ideas. So it can be like pretty open-ended, pretty like esoteric in the planning part, but then when my team actually dives into work, this is kind of what they're going into. If I'm really talking about my day, my calendar is always a good representation of like where my head is every day. So I'm just in a lot of meetings. Like next week, just tons of meetings, tons of back-to-backs. And then I'm doing things like if I'm presenting to a larger group of stakeholders, I'm in my favorite tool of all time, which is PowerPoint. So I am in front of stakeholder groups and exec people and other parts of my company a lot. I have developed a way of presenting that is a little bit unique to me. I'm often putting in like colloquialisms, calling myself dramatic, breaking things down. What does this mean? using a lot of Schitt's Creek GIFs because that's how I like to get my point across. And then if I'm talking through actual work or plans for a redesign, I'll go into wireframes. I'm like not afraid of showing high level people what it is my team is working on at a low level. So these you're seeing like literal wireframes that I have presented to my exec team. And I won't go super deep into these. I could, but I don't think it's like super relevant to the entire conversation. But I share this purposely because I think as people move along in their career in UX, you think that showing low fidelity isn't good. And I have to be this high-end designer and I have to be doing high fidelity prototypes. Like my work has to be beautiful. And it doesn't actually, it just needs to tell a story. Storytelling, I think, is like the single biggest requirement in this field. You have to be engaging. You have to be able to get into a group of people that have no idea what it is you do or why they should care. And you not only have to make the content accessible for them, but you have to make them care. Because when you make them care as your stakeholders, you get buy-in. Buy-in can literally mean money put toward this project. So I went to my stakeholders and showed the PowerPoint last week that I just showed you guys. It was basically my entire exec team. It was stressful, to be honest. Like I was very nervous. And I walked them through this. And at the end, I basically said, look, I want a tech team put against this. I want this work planned out and built. I want to make this change in our UI and I want you guys to believe in it. And I want you to like basically pony up the cash and put your money where your mouth is. And without like giving away too much, that is progressing. And they are starting to build this into our roadmaps and starting to put tech folks against it. So I really, if there's one thing that you guys take from me today as people that are passionate about or studying user experience design is understand that you can develop a niche within the industry and you can get really good at it. Now, can I jump in the trenches and do high fidelity design if I need to? Yes. But is it where I'm the most happy? Is it where I think I can make the most impact? No. I think what I can do is show people that with a little bit of investment in talking to your users and getting feedback and being able to do wireframes that you can quickly modify, that you can actually build like stunning products that, you know, our marketplace serves millions of people every year. It's a multi-million-dollar revenue product and it's built from wireframes and working closely with dev teams. And to me, that is a major part of my day and something that I want to make sure you guys take. So that was a very long TED Talk moment.
No, Carla, do you interface at all with external people, or is your work entirely internal?
Yes, I love talking to Lucid's customers. Right now, my UX researcher is in a project where she's interviewing 15 of our European customers, so our end users. My team is huge on, if you have the words internal and external, there's like a little carrot that says external is better. So we are always trying to go to our external people. I have been lucky and done some relationship building with people like our sales team, with our customer success managers. And I've basically said, look, we're going to talk to your customers, but they're going to have a really good time because we're going to basically ask them like what things they want to fix in the UI and how they want to make it better. And luckily now we have pretty open access on doing that. So I would say now I don't maybe as much as my UX researcher does, but yes, we interface with our customers very regularly and make sure that they have a chance to speak to people who actually have the power to like make things change. Sometimes customers want such small things and then you're like this goddess to them if you can give them this one change to how a page loads or how this button is always in a really crappy position on mobile. And if you can change that for them, it goes a really long way in just like maintaining a long relationship with your users. So I always like to like play Santa Claus and try and do some small wins.
Well, there's an interesting question in the chat about work-life balance.
Yes. These are good questions, Cherish. So I believe that UX and a design career in general, there's definitely work-life balance can be a key decision-making thing to take note of. I think that if you sign on to working at a place like a very, very busy agency or somewhere that's doing projects for clients really quickly with super hard deadlines, you do need to be aware of work-life balance. I have been blessed that in both of my major jobs in this field, the work-life balance has been stellar. And my leadership knew that burning out creatives resulted in crappy product. So they tried very hard not to do that. Now, there was times in my old job where like, we're on deadline for a client and like, absolutely, we had to stay late and finish it. But it was definitely once in a while. In my job now, and this is both a New Orleans thing and also like my company believes in this very strongly. I do not work past 5:30 p.m. And when I'm done with work, you guys, I sound very passionate now. I don't think about my product. I don't think about my team. I like truly shut my brain off at the end of every day because it is no use in getting burnt out and overthinking it. I always joke with my team that there are times where our product will have an outage or like go down, and our dev teams are up all night and like they are dealing with that. But nobody is going to text design in a crisis. We really can't do much to help a living product like fix itself when something goes really wrong. So I would say one of the most important parts of my career and any job that I would consider or work in is that I'm a UX professional by day, but I'm also like, as all of us, we contain multitudes. Like I'm also a writer and I also have really strong friendships that I want to take care of. And I want to make art and I want to talk about movies and I don't want to live my job. And that's you have to set those personal boundaries. You have to investigate with the companies that you interview with. How do they treat their employees? How is the work-life balance measured? But I have been really happy and overjoyed that I have been luckily not affected in that way. I've been able to have a really good, strong work-life balance. And some of that honestly is New Orleans. New Orleans people believe like when you're done with work, you are done with work and we don't talk about it anymore. And it's a great thing. It's very different from where I lived in Washington, DC, which is just a highly competitive, very, very ambitious, part of the country. So.
A follow-up question to that is, what are some of the difficult parts of your job? Like what's a bad day look like for you?
Yeah, a bad day definitely looks like when work streams of my team that have been already identified, like we work with the product team very closely. So we work on a roadmap. We set the roadmap every year to have goals by quarter. And then we like to adhere to that because that's what I plan my team for. Now, when things like business priorities change, or say last year around March, a global pandemic started, you have to pivot very strongly, and that can be really disruptive to your day. So I would say that a bad day looks like changing priorities with not much context, because then I have to mouthpiece down to my team and say, hey, sorry about all this stuff that you're working on that you like really love. We have to pivot completely into something else. But I would say that as a designer, or honestly, as anyone in any job, flexibility is key. Is being able to understand that priorities change, that businesses run into things and things happen. And as a manager and as a colleague, to have someone that's next to you that just says, hey, that might suck, but like, screw it, let's just lean in and do it and like get it done and solve this problem. That is so valuable to me. That is something that like I hire for, that we work on daily with my team. Like if I'm sensing some irritability around changing priorities, I'm going to dig in on it. I'm going to try and figure out like why that's happening and how we can make that better. So I would say a bad day is when I do have to disrupt my team's work. I don't like to do it, and I don't try and do it often. But the good day usually comes like an hour after that disruption, when my team or the people around me are like, we got you. Let's like lean in and do it. And that feels really great. So highs and lows, baby.
Right. You mentioned hiring. So talk to us a little bit about the magical candidate, the perfect candidate in your dream world. What does that person look like? What can they do? What are their skills? What are their experiences? What's their personality look like?
Sure. I mean, it would depend on the role, because there's a dream candidate for a UX writing role, and then there's a dream candidate for a high visual product designer. But if I can speak like between those lines and just figure out what I look for in terms of like values, I look for curious learners, people who aren't satisfied with just getting the job done, but are getting it done and then saying like, why are we even doing this? Or, like, how can I engage this user further? Or what is the next steps on this flow? Someone who's just a natural, curious person is very easy to work with. I would say proactivity. I am a very hands-off manager. I like to just like go do your thing and like live your truth and do your work and problem solve as you feel. And I like someone who comes back to me and says, hey, I'm running into this blocker. Hey, I'm feeling pressure from these stakeholders. Can you help me work through this? Like, especially in these remote times, I tell my team often, like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not in your home with you leaning over your shoulder. I'm not able to just walk by and say, hey, are you doing well? Like, are you okay? You have to send me a message. You have to let me know if someone's, in your ear hounding you about a deadline. You have to help me. So I would say like an open communicator, a proactive communicator. And then just honestly, like the core is just someone compassionate and kind. I really like working with nice people. I will take a nice medium level designer over a mean high level perfect designer any day. In fact, I got like a little eyebrow raised at one of my hires that I made this year, because I had budget for all senior roles. And I interviewed a person who was absolutely not a senior role. In fact, she was a documentary filmmaker, and this was going to be her first UX job. And I knew from the first interview that she had the knack and that I wanted to bring her on. And I brought her in at a junior level, and some of my leadership was like, what are you doing? And shocker to no one, especially me, she's excelling and she is learning from all the seniors on my team. But that's because she is a curious, learning, compassionate person she cares about what she's doing. And that is worth so much as a hiring manager. Now, this is not to say that the rest of my team who are seniors are anything but that as well. They're the most compassionate, amazing user advocates, truly focused on making people's lives better. Our product is not Airbnb or something that people are like scrolling with like beautiful images and it like makes you happy and develops some natural dopamine. Our product is like where you go to get work done all day, and it's like in shades of gray and white and black, and it's not beautiful. But what I'm hiring for is someone who cares about like helping someone do their job a little faster, knowing that means that maybe they get to get offline a little sooner and hang out with their family a little longer and be less stressed at the end of their day. That's the people that I need on my team. I don't need someone who's like, I want to make the most beautiful high fidelity design of all time. I need someone who's like stoked about like a navigational layout and a flow through a complex system. So it's a unique space to be hiring in, but honestly, my team, they're the most inspiring people to me every day. I adore working with them, and they're all designers that could kick my ass. Like, they're all so good, and that means so much to me.
Before we transition to talking about the future, I want to have one question, and that is, what about the role of tools, right? Because a lot in TechCom and UX, we talk a lot about all these various tools, and I think a lot of people get infatuated with tools. What's your view about tools? Because in your perfect candidate, there wasn't Photoshop, there wasn't Mach Plus, there wasn't any of this stuff.
Nope.
So what role does tools have?
Yeah, I think that I think they're really important. And I think that they can help you do jobs faster and better, but I don't think a great tool can replace a great person. My team has been getting work done. We just brought on 2 new tools, which I'll speak about briefly. One being Figma, which I mentioned before. And Figma has absolutely resulted in a much more positive handoff process with our dev team. It allows for asynchronous design. We have our whole design system plugged into Figma. It talks to a lot of other products. It's amazing. Like, we love Figma here, and we're stoked to have it. But we had Sketch before that. And before that, I use like something, I probably used Photoshop when I first came on, like before they had Sketch available or whatever. And you're just going to get the job done with what you have. Now, are there places that a good tool can invigorate that work process a little bit better? Yes, absolutely. Like on our UX research side of the house, I have one UX researcher who has to manage all UX research of multiple products across this space. And so we just brought on a product called Dovetail. Dovetail is rad. It is super awesome. It's basically a UX research repository that helps you tag, find patterns in the user feedback you're getting, transcribes all of your videos with like user interviews. It is badass. Like I love Dovetail and they have been wonderful to work with. And it has helped my UX researcher immensely to be able to do her job at a faster level and to do it with just to do it more richly and to do it like in a better way. But she was, you know, before we had Figma and Dovetail and all these other things, like we're using Confluence, which is basically just like a wiki, just documenting everything in Confluence. Before we had Confluence, we were using Google Drive. Like you find a way to get things done. It doesn't matter if like all you have is a pad and paper. Like a good professional, a good designer especially, is not going to be hindered by a lack of tools. Yes, they should suggest ones that'll help them. My team is the one who brought me Dovetail and Figma. Like I didn't pick those. They were like, this is better. This is what we want. And as a manager, you hopefully advocate for that and help fight to get those in the budget and bring them on. But if my team was like, I can't do my work because I don't have Figma, I'd be like, what? Like, yes, you can. So I would say that like they're important. They help process for sure. But like, I'm hiring the people, not the people who use whatever tool. I don't care what skill set you have and what. Like chances are you're going to have to learn a new one at a new company anyway. So don't overinvest in tools.
I love it. I love it when industry professionals say the same things that we say in classes. I love that. It warms my heart to hear that. Transitioning a little bit, let's talk about the future. Big question. What's the future of UX?
I think the future is a couple things. Cross-functionality. So being able to basically take what I just said in the beginning, which is like find your niche, and then also like find another one. Like blend those two things. So, you know, if you really love game theory and like video game design, and you're also a really great content writer, how are you cross building those skill sets together? How are you becoming or finding the right fit for you to be the most successful? I think cross-functionality as the field continues is huge. And if I can hire a UX researcher and cross-functionality can be in soft skills. If I hire a UX researcher that I also know is like a great public speaker and can go like speak in front of our company about how important UX research is, great. Love that. That's a great cross-functionality to have. I would say in general, machine learning and AI, that is something that everyone should be aware of in the field. I think automation is key. I think especially building high technical products, how can you think outside of just the UI and start thinking about APIs and places that people can integrate with your technology, places that people can build their own flows? Because no matter what, as a UX professional or someone who's very interested in building great UIs, you are not going to be able to satisfy every type of user with a UI. There's always going to be someone who your flow doesn't help and that they need to do their own thing and they need custom whatever for your product. So I would say learn a little bit about, you know, back and front end dev, learn a little bit about what APIs are, learn a little bit about how you can serve those and connect those into your data to make better decisions in the UI. And like I said earlier, I'm going into like two topics. So API functionality and flexibility in that. I think it's really great as a UX person to learn that. And then I think, again, automation, machine learning, big data and making decisions and visualizations and just ways for people to interact with a huge swath of data is really key. And that's really starting to be a trend in the area. Like, you know, in our field, we've recently discovered that one of the biggest issues with our product was that people weren't getting a good sense of how their survey work was going. as it was going. They couldn't tell if people were dropping off or getting bored because the survey was too long, or they're quitting, or they're not finishing it. So we basically had to take, respondent data in the thousands and figure out, how do I serve up some data visualizations to help people make decisions better? How can I help automate some of their survey management? If I see that people are dropping off of a survey, how do I build something into the UI that shortens the survey or pauses the survey so that you don't lose money on these people not answering it? Thinking that way, just thinking very proactively and engaging technology outside of just the UI, I think is definitely the future of the field.
There's a question in the chat that actually is one of the questions that I want to talk to you a little bit about in the few minutes that we have, and that's about how would you advise students to prepare? So Helly asks, what are some good sources to get started? Yeah. If you had to recommend a website, a podcast, a book, what would that be?
So I am a big, I'm going to try and pull some of them up in my email right now, but I'm a big newsletter subscriber. I like getting newsletters in my inbox. I always read them and I'm always very interested in them. So I'm going to try and find a couple that I subscribe to. Hold on, if you don't mind. I wasn't prepared for this question, but I should have been. Let's see. Actually, you know what, Sean, what I'm going to do is, it's not going to be helpful for me to just name these like newsletters and things that I subscribe to, but I will put a list together and email it to you so you can just send it to people. I would say Smashing UX, I think, is a good one. That is a big UX site. The Godfathers, Nielsen and Norman, I subscribe to their newsletter. I subscribe to this really cool newsletter called Tech Jobs for Good, which is very cool for anyone looking to work in the field. These are all tech-centric jobs that are either with social good companies or people that are focused on diversity, that are focused on like changing the human condition for the better. So you're not getting lost in, thinking that the big tech jobs have to be at Apple, Facebook, whatever, all these nonsense companies that you don't want to work for anyway. Just no offense, Facebook, I just don't like you. And instead it's taking like these littler guys and pulling out some of their stuff and just bringing it to you in a newsletter. So I subscribe to those. I subscribe to, some of them just have such generic names that I don't want to give them away in case I get them wrong, but it's literally like Design Weekly or something. I'll put a list together and send it to you guys. Books, I actually just read this book, which I will plug for the author. This is called The Product-Led Organization. It's by Todd Olson, who is at Pendo. He's the CEO of Pendo. He actually did a talk with my product team and design team at Lucid about his book. And I thought that this actually was really design focused, really design driven, really UI focused. And it's about basically taking a tech company that's been more sales driven and changing it to being more driven by the product. So bringing in a lot about user research, how you engage your end users, how you make decisions to better advocate for them. I listen to a ton of podcasts, but they're often political. And so I don't think that's relevant to this discussion, but I think 99% Invisible is a great design podcast. That's a classic. And I have other ones in my phone that I don't have with me, but yes, I will send you a list of tons of resources. I appreciate design a lot. It's just almost like so much that I can't narrow the list right now on the fly.
Last question.
Yes.
What's next for you?
What is next for me? Who could say? I am really enjoying being a part of this like very fast growing team at Lucid. I am, like I've said, I'm invigorated by all of the people I work with. I learn from them every day, and they are awesome and amazing. So for now, I'm focused on delivering product to this company and making sure that, throughout the next year, I bring on more of the right people. I think I have a couple more hires to make, which is exciting. We've had a couple more hires in my kind of larger product organization, so working with them. But yeah, for now, you can probably tell from my like I've almost lost my voice with like how passionate I am. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with. I would love to see the world go back to a place where we can be in person with each other again safely one day. I would love to. This is funny, but I have hired 4 people this year, and I was joking with them the other day in our weekly meeting, and I was like, I don't even know how tall you guys are. Like, I don't. It's so weird. Like, I work with you 8 hours a day, and I know you like a mullet from the waist up. It's so strange. So I think I would love to see either the world make some very big adjustments to becoming a mostly remote technical workforce, or I would love to see things start to go back to some semblance of normalcy, but we'll see.
Seize the day, live in the moment, huh?
Got to. Yeah, so if anyone has more questions, I'm happy to answer. I think we have a couple minutes, or Sean, if you have more.
We have a couple minutes if you want to post something. And my partner off screen, Lonnie, I'm not sure if we have any questions from YouTube. Dan above had a question. I must have missed it.
So how and what helped you in the decision to pursue this field? So I would say, Dan, great question. Some of it was my undergrad, just natural progression toward UX without knowing what it was. I studied psychology and writing as an undergrad. And then I went to a grad program called a Master of Professional Communication, where I was able to kind of tailor into user experience design by way of taking web design courses, game design courses, rhetorical theory courses, talking with Sean, getting some advice from some of my mentors, and being kind of pushed by way of the field. I'll be honest, like, the way to this field, or to any field that is the right field for you, is get really good mentors. I legitimately stand on the shoulders of giants every day, and I would not be anywhere in my field without the people that have like directly steered me in a direction that seemed like a good idea. And like, take a shot. If you don't like it, you can go do something else. Like, maybe I'll be a zookeeper in 5 years. I don't know. I'm not, but you never know. So probably a ridiculous answer to that question, but Curtis said, what is something about UX that even surprises UX professionals? What is something about UX that surprises us is, I would say, like, I kind of talked to it before earlier, but like how reticent to change everyone is, even myself, like how much we all fight anything in our lives changing, even if it's for the better, because it's just like the principles of recency just reign our lives. Like, anything that you remembered last is what you want to remember for the future. And I think that I'm always surprised when, like, for instance, we're pitching this work to redesign our platform that would basically allow you to take, building a survey right now takes like 35 clicks and like 6 minutes, like at the minimum. It's really tough to build a survey. The redesign that we're pitching takes that, and you can build a pretty simple survey and launch it in no more than 45 seconds in about 6 clicks. And people are like, I don't like it. I like the old way. No, I don't care that it's not responsive. I don't care that I can't use it on my phone. I don't care that the pages take forever to load. I like the way it was. And that surprises me still, because I'll be on the phone with them just like, okay, I mean, what can I do? So I would say, yeah, everybody's reticence to change is still surprising me after all these years. Any websites you can recommend that I could pass along to an 18-year-old student who's wondering what major career to go into so they can see what this field is about? Yeah, you can pass them my website and I'll tell them to go into this field. I'm just kidding. I will send you guys my website because you guys are welcome to interface with me directly. And I love taking on chatting with young people in the field. But I will also, in the resources that I share with Sean, I'll list some of the places that I think are kind of inspiring and invigorating to potential young designers. And I will definitely share those. Absolutely, no problem. How much does knowing a bit about human behavior and psychology a part of this field? Alex, great question. It's a huge part of this field because you are literally an advocate for changing human behavior or improving it or making sure that it doesn't change if it's going really well. So I think being an empath, being someone who understands human psychology, understands things like, you know, reward detection and understands principles of design that make people's brains feel good, like the golden ratio and the 3/5 rule and all this stuff. Like, I don't think that that can do anything but help you in the field. I think it just makes you a more empathetic designer. And it makes you someone who understands that, like, there's a reason why, Craigslist has never changed its UI. There's a reason that we love like weird long lists and browsing and shopping in this way. There's a reason why, things are the way they are. And a lot of that just boils down to very basic psychological principles that if you understand them, you just understand more about the weirdness of why we are the way we are online. If I could have my way, I would go continue studying human behavior in the digital world, especially with our poor younger generations, like the Zoomers, and what they're going to do, in this like fully digital world with no ability to communicate in real life. That is a very big passion area of mine, and I think we need more work in that field, in that regard. So I would say psychology forever.
30 seconds,
yes.
Carlisle. How big of a role does emotion play?
I would say same answer, like huge, especially just directly for doing UX research. If you're on the video or in a room with someone and you can understand why they're pausing and going like this or being delighted by something, that is just a basic understanding of human emotion. So I think it's very important to be in tune to, the social norms of the people around you. So yes, very important. I might be over time. Sorry.
That's okay. Ladies and gentlemen out there in Zoom land, in YouTube land, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very, very much, Carlisle Sargent in New Orleans, for sharing your thoughts with us today and your passion. I look forward to getting your list. I'll share that with people who are on our call today. Please don't be a stranger.
I won't. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for taking the time. And if any of y'all need anything directly, you could reach out to me on my website.
Thank you very, very much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Talk to you soon.